In 1987, Kansas went 1-9-1 in Bob Vallison's final with the Jayhawks, one of the worst in the program's history. Cus' only win that was against Division I AA Southern Illinois, and its 17-17 tie was with equally inept Kansas State, pet game nicknamed the Toilet Bowl by a local scribe. Vallison, a longtime college and NFL assistant, went 4-1-7-1 in a disastrous two-year run. A former Q staffer was asked last week to compare the state of the program now to then. Worse, he said. The conclusion is important for Kansas, the Big 12 and really all of college football. Q is in the process of hiring an athletic director who will most likely have to hire a football coach for what is arguably the worst program in the country. David Beatty is 3-33 in threes with exactly one win over a Power 5 opponent, Texas, 2016. QHASNT won a road game since 2009, dropping 46 in a row. Since 2007, when Mark Mangino took the Jayhawks to the Orange Bowl, there has been one misstep after another leading to this conclusion. Whoever succeeds Beatty and recently fired athletic director Shihorn Zenger has to ask a basic career-altering question. Can I afford to fail at Kansas? I think there is a risk, said Del Robinson, an athletic headhunter at executive search firm Spelman Johnson. The reward side is limited. You're probably not going to win a national championship there. It goes back to, what is success? A mid-level bowl beat Texas Tech once every 4 years right now. Kansas would take that in a heartbeat. If you consider football is everything to television right shoulders, who's to say Cus major conference status isn't up for debate if football continues to tank? They've never been able to embrace a blueprint, one Power 5 AD said of Kansas football. It's going to be a tough putt no matter who gets hired. Any AD or coach with slightest interest in the job has to consider all of the above before laying their career on the line. The upside is obvious. The downside is frightening. Starting with Vallison, 5 of the last 6 Kansas coaches haven't coached again in the Power 5. There is no common thread running through the AD job. The forgettable Al Bowl somehow got sideways with legendary basketball coach Roy Williams but was good enough to hire Mangino. Lou Perkins infamously hired the inexperienced Turner Gill 5-19 in twos and just as infamously guaranteed him $10 million over 5 years. Zenger couldn't be trusted to hire another coach after whiffing on Charlie Weis and Beatty. One administrator in the SEC said it would take $30 million in upgrades, salaries and budget increases in football to turn Q around. That includes paying, or overpaying, the right coach $4 million per year. All of it hammers home the point, football is still the most important sport on any FBS campus. Kansas has a top 5 basketball program, but its conference future is tied to being at least competent in football. You can't keep playing Russian roulette with coaches, former Q coach Glenn Mason 1988-1996 said. You can't keep buying hope. There are only 2 things in sports, results and hope. When they don't get the results they want, they have hope. Is hope running out at Kansas? Remember, this was a school that was on the precipice of dropping out of the then Power 6 in 2010. Pac-10 Commissioner Larry Scott narrowly failed that year in raiding the Big 12 of half of its membership. That might have left Iowa State, Kansas State, and yes, even Kansas with a top 5 basketball program looking at either the Mountain West or Big East. Doesn't matter who they are, said a consultant who works with conferences and TV rights deals. Wake Forest has some of the best facilities in the country. You're probably talking one of the smallest schools in the country. They've got their boosters making sure they keep up in football. Don't laugh. Wake Forest, another basketball school, has won 24 more football games 52-24 and been to 3 more bowls 4-1 than Kansas since 2008. Meanwhile, Kansas is in the process of a $300 million facilities upgrade that would at least indicate it intends to play big-time football. CBS Sports interviewed at least 10 college sources about the conundrum at Kansas. There may not have been a basketball program this good combined with a football program this bad since Duke in 2008. That year, then AD Joe Alleva made perhaps the best hire of his career in football coach David Cutcliffe. The Blue Devils are currently on their best 10-year run, 59 wins in 74 years. That's a great example of finding the right fit, one Power 5 AD said of Duke. Kansas needs a David Cutcliffe. The next AD has to be adept at fundraising and have a proven record of hiring football coaches. 2 prominent ADs whose names have been associated with the job are already out. USA Today reported last week SMU AD Rick Hart was staying. UCF AD Danny White strongly denied he had even met with Kansas. Unfortunately, I am compelled to comment on another institution's search. Disappointed that its nation stated that I met with another school about their AD position. This couldn't be farther from the truth. There's no reason for me to do that. UCF is the best AD job in America. Danny White at UCF. Danny White, June 29, 2018. CBS Sports reached out to a couple of agents asking for a list of coaches who would not only take the Kansas job but also succeed in Lawrence. One responded, "It is a job for the daring and desperate. Part of that conundrum, whether the new coach wins or fails, he is mostly likely gone in a few years, either for a better job or looking for a new one. That's the reality. History tells us it's hard to sustain football excellence at KU. Look at the CUS 5 best footballs since 1910. The followings: the Jayhawks finished a cumulative 2-8, 2-5, 2. The program's last 4 coaches have been fired or resigned under pressure. It would benefit Kansas this time to hire a sitting FBS coach. QHASNT done that since Mason in 1988. If they were to go that route, the following names might be in play. Craig Bohl, Wyoming, perhaps one final run at the big time for the former Nebraska assistant after producing quarterbacks Carson Wentz and Josh Allen for the NFL. Terry Bowden, Akron, desperate for bigger job after turning around the Zips. Neil Brown, Troy, still only 38 with plenty of upside. Bill Clark, UAB, CBS Sports Coach of the Year in 2017. Kansas would be lucky to get to him. Willie Fritz, Tulane, has ties to the state. Would be a nice package deal with Green Wave AD Troy Danin. Seth Little, North Texas, former captain for Oklahoma's 2000 national champions, Little could ride talented quarterback Mason Fine all the way to Lawrence. Matt Weiss, Utah State, 34 wins in 5s. Current UCF coach Josh Heupel was once his offensive coordinator. Frank Wilson, UTSA, once Les Miles' right-hand guy at LSU. Wilson is considered one of the best recruiters in the country, and that short list does not include names even more familiar to the average college football fan, though many would have to think twice about leaving their current gigs. Brett Bielema, he is out of football after being fired at Arkansas and remains a favorite to replace his old boss Bill Snyder at Kansas State. Les Miles, also out of football after losing his job at LSU, Miles has been actively looking to return to the sidelines. Hugh Freeze, despite the S at Ole Miss, there is no doubt Freeze wants back in the game as soon as possible. He could certainly afford to fail here even if he may have a chance at a Power 5 coordinator job in 2019. Brett Venables, Clemson defensive coordinator, he has shown an aversion to becoming a head coach for some reason. Another Kansas State guy, Mike Bobo, Colorado State coach. Bobo's next move, if he keeps winning at Colorado State, will be to the SEC. Speaking of package deals, Bobo's boss, Joe Parker, is considered a top candidate to replace Zenger. Lane Kiffin, FAU coach. Kiffin is desperate for a Power 5 upgrade, but if he fails at Kansas, what then? Mel Tucker, Georgia defensive coordinator, he would have a stamp of approval from Kirby Smart and Nick Saban. They would probably be the first ones to urge Tucker to hang on for a better gig, like they did. A third tier includes these names: Jedd Fisch, Los Angeles Rams senior offensive analyst. The Rams are his 7th NFL team. He has formerly worked in the college space at Michigan, Miami and UCLA. Respected offensive mind, Troy Calhoun, Air Force. Calhoun lands this low because he is one of the most respected names in the game but seems determined to stay with Falcons. He once told me he considers his job a vocation teaching future military leaders. Chris Kleeman, North Dakota State, 6 FCS national championships as an assistant and head coach with the Bison. That's the job I want, said one coach with extensive Power 5 and NFL experience. I have circled Kansas. I have been researching it. The absolute best fit might be the guy who HASNT coached since being unceremoniously pushed out in 2009, Mangino. That says enough. KU probably ISNT going to rehire the only coach to leave it with a winning record in the last 65 years. Perhaps it's best to pay attention to the man overseeing the search. Jed Hughes is considered one of the best in the business. The vice chairman at search firm Korn Ferry is considered the gold standard. Several sources believe that, as soon as Hughes helps place the AD, Kansas will go to him again for the head coaching search. Part of Hugh's appeal is his ability to think outside the box. For better or worse, he was the guy who placed former Domino's CEO Dave Brandon at Michigan. The two had played together with the Wolverines. "You'd at least think they'd avoid embarrassment," said one former Coup coach who did not want to be identified. "You'd at least think they'd say, 'I'm going to interview Mike Leach.' Now that's outside the box."